Chairs No Waiting, episode number 603, 60 Years of Mayberry. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at WeaversDepartmentStore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and pick up some of the great things they got over there. Right now, you might want to pick up the 2021 Andy Griffith Show wall calendar. That's right, get your wall calendar before the year's out because everybody wants to get through with 2020. While you're heading over there, you might want to check out the Christmas ornaments. We got Christmas ornaments this year. I know it's still early, but you got to order online. It takes a while to get them. Head over to WeaversDepartmentStore.com and check out everything you'll find there. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. The executive producer of episode number 603 is Mark Ray. Mark Ray. Did I say that right? Yeah, Mark Ray is our executive producer. Thank you, Mark. If you'd like to be an executive producer, you can do that too. If you donate to the podcast, you can do that. That's how he does it. So thank you, Mark. And thanks to everybody that supports the show, whether it be through donations or just getting out and telling people about it. Either way, it's absolutely great. So we're going to be talking, as I said, about 60 years of Mayberry. Because I ran across an article. This is back from September, but it's still, I think, fitting to be talking about. We've been talking about the 60th anniversary the last couple of weeks. Randy Turner has been giving us installments about No Time for Sergeants and what made Andy famous, really, what helped him become Andy Taylor, kind of what led into it. And so I just think it's fitting to keep talking about the 60th anniversary. I'm guessing we're going to be doing that most of the year, actually, off and on, talking about the 60th anniversary of the Andy Griffith Show, which happened on the 3rd of October this year. What I ran across recently was from the Nashville Ledger. The Nashville Ledger is the name of the paper, and I found the online version, and the title is "Loyal Fans Mark 60 Years of the Andy Griffith Show," and this is back from September 18th, 2020, and it was written by Joe Rogers. Joe Rogers is a fan of the Andy Griffith Show himself, so this ought to be a lot of fun. So I hope you're going to enjoy this. Then we'll hear from Randy Turner after it. Little background music just to make things a little more fun. There we go. So Loyal Fans mark 60 years of Andy. And this is really mostly about Jim Clark, so we need to give him some shout outs and love as well. With the 60th anniversary of the Andy Griffith Show approaching on October 3rd, as I said, this was written back in September, I call your attention to Nashville's strong connection with Mayberry. There was, of course, Floyd Lawson's desperate declaration when he feared exposure of his deceitful brags in a letter to a female pen pal. "I'm going to Nashville." That was a dramatic read there. "I'm going to Nashville." And then the fact that the manicurist, Helen Brown, to whom, as Andy observed, nature had been real good, when she arrived in Mayberry on the Nashville bus. What's more, cast members Doug Dillard, the banjo-playing Darlin' Boy, and George Lindsay, of course, we know who that is, Goober, both became longtime residents of Nashville. But probably the most significant connection to the Andy Griffith Show is that of the Andy Griffith Show Reenactors Club that was founded by Jim Clark and 3 of his Phi Kappa Sigma brothers at Vanderbilt in the fall of 1979. It started out of our need to get dibs on the fraternity's one TV before the MASH fans claimed the TV rights, Clark told me. The 2 shows often came on at the same time. From that modest beginning, word of the club spread first on campus and then around Nashville, then to Middle Tennessee and beyond, way beyond. The club has grown to include 1,468 local chapters, including one in Saudi Arabia and one in Israel, all taking their names from characters or memorable lines from the show. The most recent is, "You were on a date, you weren't taking medicine," based out of Piedmont, South Carolina. Full disclosure, the writer of this column was a newspaper columnist in Jackson, Mississippi, and he founded the Otis Campbell chapter in 1983. Clark, of the original Andy chapter, bears the title Presiding Goober of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. This is a quote from Jim. He says, "For the past few years, I've been trying to officially transition into Presiding Goober Emeritus," he says, partly because he likes the additional absurdity of the title, but also to shift his activities to a slower, more Mayberry-like pace. That sounds like Jim. After all, as visiting pastor Dr. Harrison Everett Breen exhorted in the sermon for the day, he said, "What's your hurry?" And the truth be told, over the years, Clark has basically been the keeper of the flame for the show's fans. In addition to his writing and editing of the club's newsletter, The Bullet, now the E-Bullet, and general curation of all things club related, he and the former Tennessean writer and editor Ken Beck have collaborated on a number of Mayberry-themed projects, including the Andy Griffith Show book, an Andy Griffith Show calendar, Aunt Bee's Mayberry cookbook, Goober in a Nutshell, that was George Lindsay's memoirs, which was co-written with Lindsay, and Mayberry Memories, an Andy Griffith Show photo album. Clark was also the co-writer with Andy Griffith for his memoirs. They were reviewing the editor's revisions of the manuscripts when Griffith passed away in 2012. I don't know whether that book will ever be published, Clark says. I hope so. Andy was an extraordinary storyteller. Owing to the club's influence, a number of Mayberry cast reunions have also been held at Opryland, USA, and the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. In addition, Nashville hosted Otis Campbell Day with actor Hal Smith in 1988. Smith was deputized and received the key to the city, and the key to the city jail, I should say, thanks to Mayor Bill Bonner. And Lindsay received a tire gauge to the city during the Goober Pile Day in 1990. Of late, Mount Airy, North Carolina, Griffith's hometown, inside of Andy Griffith Museum and sundry other Mayberry-themed attractions, has taken on much of the Mayberry load. Since 1990, it has hosted the annual Mayberry Days Festival, with this year's event, as it always does, occurring the last full weekend of September. The club's membership growth and activities now take place largely online. Clark says the imayberry.com website is the hub. We estimate that at any given time there are about 25,000 people engaged in the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club's various online and chapter activities, he adds. The main Facebook page has more than 240,000 followers. Wow, 240,000 followers. That's a lot. Wow. I asked Clark a question about his personal favorite episode, confident that, like all Mayberry fans, he wouldn't be able to narrow it down to just one episode. And he didn't. He did say, "I will say that I think no episode epitomizes the show better than Man in the Hurry." He said that. "I think we as viewers are sometimes like the rushed businessman, Malcolm Tucker. We're in a big hurry, but as with Mr. Tucker, Mayberry has a way of helping us slow down and appreciate the simple things in life. Beyond that, though, like everybody else, I also love the Pickle Story and Barney and the Choir, Don Knotts' two favorites. Barney's First Car, Andy Griffith's favorite. Opie the Birdman, Sermon for Today, Convicts at Large, Goober and the Art of Love, and anything with the Darlings or Ernest T. Bass. And has there ever been a better Christmas episode in a TV show than Mayberry's? No, there hasn't. And I'll add The Loaded Goat, Citizen's Arrest, and Three Wishes for Opie, or other top episodes. As a purist, the writer of this article says, I don't watch anything that's in color. Oh, that hurts me. As for the show's continuing popularity, all these many years later, Clark has some theories. At the core of the appeal for me is the truly outstanding storytelling, he says. But then you have the amazing cast. I don't think there has ever been a finer ensemble of characters or character actors. It's also a wholesome show that folks of all ages can enjoy watching together. That's what Jim said. And nostalgia is often cited as part of the appeal, but I think if the show were just wholesome and nostalgic, it wouldn't be enough. It's the great entertainment that keeps us still watching over and over after 60 years. And to add one more reason, Andy Griffith always said the key ingredient to the show was love, Clark says. And I can't disagree with that. So Joe Rogers, the writer, is a former writer for the Tennessean and editor of the New York Times. He retired and is living in Nashville, and he can be reached. His email address was published. I'm not going to say it in here, but if you want to see it, there is a link to this story on our show notes. And so you can go and check it out. This is the Tennessee Ledger. So go and check out the article and read it for yourself if you'd like to. So, wow. Thank you, Joe. Great story. And Jim Clark, wow, does he not deserve just such high praise? All these events, all the Mayberry events that we get to do throughout the years, even the recent Mayberry Man movie, none of that would have happened, I don't believe, without Jim Clark. Because Jim Clark was the one that talked Mount Airy, North Carolina, into having the very first Mayberry Days. He was the one with the Rerun Watchers Club that was able to show that there are so many of us out here, fans like me and you, that enjoy watching these episodes, as Jim said, over and over. And how much we still love the episodes, even today, 60 years after it had started. And I think he's right. The writers, the entire crew, the actors of the Andy Griffith Show, it's just something special. I mean, there are a lot of good shows, but there's not many shows, very few. I can count on one hand, maybe. Probably less than one hand, shows that I will watch episodes over and over. You know, of course, I'm biased. I love the Andy Griffith Show, so maybe that's it. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that. That's just a little bit more of the 60th anniversary of the Andy Griffith Show and just how fortunate we have been. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the trivia contest last week. I heard from several of you guys. If you didn't get to play, you can go back and listen to last week's podcast and you'll be able to hear the trivia for the qualifying round of Mayberry Days trivia. And the not next week, but the week after, probably sometime right after that, we'll do the finals of the Mayberry Days trivia, and you can play along with that as well. So just keep watching. In the meantime, we are lucky to have our Mayberry History reporter, Randy Turner, coming up. So let's take it away, Randy. You ready? There he is. Randy Turner, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
In celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Andy Griffith Show's debut, this week we will continue to discuss how No Time for Sergeants led to Andy being so well known. The televised version of Sergeants, in which Andy starred, is a real treat to watch, in spite of it only existing as a kinescope, meaning it was preserved by a film camera being set up to record the television screen as the episode was broadcast. Andy's hair is piled high as the show opens, with him speaking directly to the camera and singing a song. As pointed out last week, by necessity, the TV version covers just a portion of the events detailed in the book. It also makes changes to what it does cover. For instance, in the book, Will Stockdale is not in the same barracks as the other Colville, Georgia recruits. In the TV version, they're always together. Will is still called a plowboy in the TV version, but in the book, the verbal abuse he suffers is considerably worse. There are two comedic gags that can help us see differences between the book and the TV episode of the United States Dill Hour, which starred Andy. Will is put on latrine duty by Sergeant King in both versions. Will excels at cleaning the latrine, so much so that King decides he didn't need to be classified like the other recruits, and he can be the PLO, Permanent Latrine Orderly. When the captain, whom King had described to Will as especially interested in a clean latrine, comes to inspect the barracks, the naive Will innocently wants to share the credit and tells the captain the extra cleaning was King's idea. After learning that Will is not working on classification, despite having already been there 2 weeks, the captain orders King to make sure Will is classified quickly, adding he will knock King down to a private if he fails to do so. Sergeant King helps Will as much as possible, including getting the written test in advance that Will has to take. One of the majors that conducted the testing of the televised version was played by Robert Emhart, best remembered by Mayberry fans as Malcolm Tucker in the classic episode Man in a Hurry. The first gag that illustrates differences in the novel and the TV version involved Will's eyesight test. In the novel, Will and his scrawny friend Ben Whitledge have to see a lieutenant during the testing. Will is stunned the officer is a well-spoken black man, though Will again uses the N-word freely. After the stunned Will doesn't follow protocol when encountering the officer, Ben explains an officer always has to be saluted. When questioned by Will by saying, "But that was a black man," Ben says he didn't see the color of the officer, only that it was an officer. Much to Sergeant King's concern, Will is grabbed to take the eyesight test before King can try to put a fix on the testing. So King is understandably concerned about how Will performed on the vision test. While they are in the mess hall discussing how the test went, the black lieutenant comes in. When someone asks Will what he thinks about a black man being an officer, they use the racial slur too, by the way, Will looks at the officer and then repeats the lesson he's learned from Ben. He says all he sees is an officer, and he doesn't see the man's color, greatly distressing Sergeant King, who is sure Will has failed the eye test since he is obviously colorblind. In the televised version, the same concept was used, but instead of Will being stunned when seeing a black officer, he is instead shocked to see a woman officer. The same gag is used without the colorblind component, with Will saying he doesn't see if it's a man or a woman, he only sees an officer. The second gag involves Will wanting to do something extra special for the captain who is returning for an inspection along with the colonel. In the novel, during latrine inspection, Will steps on a pedal he has rigged, which makes all the commode seats snap open as if at attention when the captain enters. Network television felt the sight of saluting toilets would be too much for the social attitudes of the time, and so insisted this scene be changed. Instead, in the television version, Will sets up a mechanism on the step into the barracks that causes the Air Force song to play on a phonograph, a flag with the U.S. Army Air Force's insignia to unfurl, and confetti to drop. In both versions, after King comes in, he is stripped of his stripes and sent with the new recruits to gunnery school. The televised version ends at this point, though approximately a third of the novel still remains. Next week, we'll look at the Broadway play version of No Time for Sergeants, the next step on Andy Griffith's path to becoming a more widely known public figure. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening, and remember to take care of one another, be careful, and take Andy's advice, and act like somebody.
Thank you, Randy. As always, Randy comes up with some great Mayberry information for us. If you want to make sure that you're not missing out on any of the great things Randy finds and runs across related to the Andy Griffith Show, send him an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com. turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he'll make sure you don't miss out on any of the fun. So thank you again, Randy. And I have watched that kinescope version from the U.S. Still Hour. I have watched that, and it is available online. So there is a link in our show notes, so you can go and watch that. It's available. I found it online. It's not great quality, but it is really fun to watch, and it's very funny. It's real funny. In the TV version, in this version, he was not the permanent latrine orderly. He was the permanent barracks orderly. So he's a PBO in this one. Because I noticed that because I was watching it tonight doing screenshots to use for the video version of this podcast. So if you ever watch the video version, you'll be able to see pictures and stuff as it's going on. But hopefully it doesn't take away by not seeing, but it just adds a little bit if you can see. All right. Well, guys, that's really all I have for you tonight. But I am excited just about spending this year. This coming year here is really the 60th anniversary. It started October the 3rd. So from here until next October, in my opinion, it's the 60th anniversary of the Andy Griffith Show. So we'll be able to celebrate the entire year and from time to time be able to talk about things. Randy mentioned next week, continuing the information about No Time for Sergeants, but next week will be Halloween week. So we're going to continue our yearly tradition of doing the Who Stole My Golden Arm episode next week. So the entire episode will be spooky campfire stuff. So we'll be doing that next week. So I hope everybody will join and just have fun. It's a different kind of episode. It's different, and do it almost every year. But it's just fun. It's just fun for me. It's a spooky episode, and it's fun to do. So maybe we'll have another story to go along with the Who Stole My Golden Arm, but maybe not. We'll see. We'll see. So, but that's what it'll be next week. So there will be no Randy Turner report next week, this week in Mayberry History. So, no, you want to keep your eyes open for that. People in the chat room are asking, should they keep their eyes closed when we tell the story? No, it's good. It's good. All right, guys. That is all I have for us tonight. I hope you have enjoyed your time here in Mayberry with me. It's always fun just spending a little bit of time visiting and talking. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me about your memories of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. Tell us about how you found out about it, or where did you know about it, and just how did it help you get involved in some of the Mayberry things? Have you gotten to go to events? Did you find out about Weavers maybe through it? That's great too, because Weavers likes to know things like that. So friends, the Andy Griffith Show is special, and tell you the truth, so are you. All us Mayberry fans, some of the neatest people I've ever met. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So give me a call at 888-684-8415 or email me at floyd@imayberry.com. And until next week, we'll see you here on Two Chairs. Good night, everybody.